Hi! Today we are going to draw some 2D figures and classify them based on their properties. So you will need a piece of paper and something to write with. And we're going to start by drawing the outlines of a few 2D shapes on our paper. So in this upper left corner, we're going to make a pentagon, which means 5 sides, right? So you can make any pentagon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, then let's move over to the right corner, and up there we're going to do a triangle. So this can be any kind of triangle. We're going to make it big because inside it we will draw 3 other triangles. So leave space for that. Okay, so there's our triangle outline. Inside this triangle, we're going to draw 3 types of triangles. So first is equilateral. So all 3 sides will be exactly the same length, or at least do the best we can. So there's our equilateral triangle. At another spot inside, let's draw an isosceles triangle. So that's where we have the 2 sides are the same length, and then a different length across the bottom, or it could be any side, but 2 sides the same length. Okay, and then let's do a scalene triangle. So we want to have no sides the same length here. So it could be a right triangle or not. There you go. Okay, so there's a scalene. It looks a little bit like, they look similar, but we'll do our best to make them different. Okay, so then let's move to the bottom, maybe a little bit towards the right, for a hexagon. And this one is like the pentagon. We're not putting anything inside it. So just make it big enough that you can draw it, but we don't have to put anything inside. So 6 sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the hexagon. And last, we're going to make a large quadrilateral. 4 sides. We need to make it pretty big because we're going to draw a lot of different kinds of quadrilaterals inside it. So draw any 4 sides like this. And then it doesn't matter if it's exactly this way, just any 4-sided shape. Okay, so then inside we're going to draw 3 main shapes, but those are going to have shapes inside them. So draw them as big as you can and to still fit 3 across. So first is the kite. So the kite is going to have the top 2 sides are equal length, and the bottom 2 sides are of equal length, but different from the top. So it looks like a kite. Okay. Then inside the kite, we're going to draw a rhombus, and there's going to be something inside the rhombus too, so we have to leave space, so draw it kind of big. So the rhombus is going to be all 4 sides are the same length, but the angles are different. So we have our acute angles and our obtuse angles that are the same. All right, so there's our rhombus. And inside the rhombus, we're going to draw a square. All 4 sides and all 4 angles are exactly the same. You can turn the square any direction, but there's our tiny little square. Okay, so that's our kite. Now over here, we're going to do a parallelogram. So that's where we need to have both, the opposite sides need to be going the same, need to be the same length, and the opposite angles are the same, like this. Mine was a little bit off there. So there's my parallelogram. And then for the rectangle, we're gonna fit 2 more shapes inside and 2 more shapes inside of those. So keep drawing kind of big. So we'll have a rectangle here. So 4 angles are all the same, but 2 sides are long and 2 sides are short. And inside the rectangle is a square where all four sides are exactly the same and all four angles are exactly the same. There's our square inside our rectangle, inside our parallelogram. And then over here inside the parallelogram, we're going to do another rhombus because that one also fits inside a parallelogram. So we're going to have a same thing. We have our equal length sides, but our angles are different. These two are the same and these two are the same. And inside the rhombus also goes the square. Okay. And then on this side over here, we're going to do one more kind of quadrilateral, which is a trapezoid, where we have two sides like this that are parallel, but let's make this one straight and this one at an angle. So this is one kind of trapezoid, and inside of it we're going to draw an isosceles trapezoid, which is where we have our two parallel lines, but on the sides the two sides are equal length to each other, and these angles are going to be equal and those will be equal. All right, so we have our drawing of our some of our 2D shapes, and we've classified them by what shape they go with. So today I'll be using oil pastel to do the coloring, and you can be grabbing something that you'll use. If you want to use oil pastel, that's great. If you want to use something else, that's fine. If you only have a pen or pencil, you can go ahead and do some patterns and shading inside your shapes. But when we look at this, basically, we're just kind of making an abstract drawing here using these shapes. So as you color, you can decide to use these shapes. If they remind you of something, you could decide to make them into that thing. Like, let's say you have made something that kind of looks like a face or a person or something like that. So you could go ahead and make it look more like that by the way you color it in. Or if you want to stay away from that, you can just do random colors like I'm going to do. And you can kind of imagine what it is. So one idea would be like thinking about it almost like windows. And you can see back behind, you know, all these shapes are cutting into each other like little windows inside the other shapes. So maybe you're thinking about light coming through a series of windows or something like that. That's kind of what I'm going to think about as I'm using this yellow. Just thinking about the light poking through some of these shapes. And I'm just going to use some different fun colors to fill up all my area. So I'll use a combination of light and dark. I'm going to put some space between my light colors. So I've got my yellow inside my box there, and I'm thinking that box will be dark, and then it's light again with this orange. So I'm just going to kind of play around with light and dark with that window idea. And that's just one idea. I would like you to take your idea and run with it and do what you think of. If it's the same as me, great. If it's different, then perfect. Do that. Maybe you'd even want to do something where you're doing designs within the shapes too. Something like this maybe, where you're creating a pattern. So now that we've drawn it, you can do whatever you want on top with the coloring. So you can we've drawn our basic shapes, but if you want to take those and change them somehow or add more detail, it's okay if it ends up changing the shape, because that will still be there underneath, and that was just our beginning point with art today. Actually, we'll take this and do that. Okay, so next we'll get some darker, cooler colors. I guess I'm also going to play with the contrast of warm and cool colors as well. It's really fun to see what other people come up with when they look at the same thing. You might have thought something really specific when you looked at these shapes. So that's, and it's probably different from mine. And I think that would be really great to see it, to see what you make, because then it helps me know what other people's ideas are. It's just so cool with art how there's not one answer, there's just endless answers to how you can create something or solve a problem. And so each person, depending on your experiences and ideas, the way you think, each person's gonna have their own solutions, which is great. Like the more of those, the better that we can see. If you're using oil pastel like me today, just notice how it's so smooth to color with. You use it kind of like a crayon when you're coloring, but it's just very smooth. It's very smooth and it lays down really nicely because it's so thick. And, kind of sticks to the page. It's not dusty like the chalk pastels, so we don't have to worry about rubbing it in, although you can do that if you want to. That's something that you can do as a way to get it a little more blended. And I jumped to my background here for a second. So I want to see how I'd like to use this color in the background, and I want to see how it looks before I decide on all my other colors. So I'm gonna get that in there first, and then I'll go back and finish my white spots in the quadrilateral here. And I'll show you when you're doing a big background like this with your oil pastels, it's a great time to take the wrapper off, and you can use it on its side. I'll show you that too. Okay, so I've peeled off a little bit of this wrapper here, and I'm just gonna put it on its side so I can rub it like this. And then that will help just cover a wider area faster. You don't have to do that technique, that's just one technique. And it's something that I like to do, but then I don't always just leave it like that. I might go back in and add another layer just to blend it more. Or you could get a cloth or a tissue and blend it in, because it's going to show a lot of white through still. You kind of want to make sure that everything we do looks like we really thought it through and not just left it white on accident or because we were tired or something. So I'll go back in and get another color to show you how we can layer it and fill in a little more of this space. But this is a really good way to just get it covered fast. So we have that foundation down. so now I can see what that color looks like, and then as I go back to fill in the rest, I'll have that to work with. Okay, so now I'm going to take some yellow and do the same thing, and that will start to help fill in some of that white. This yellow is just a piece that broke off. It makes it really easy to use because it's big enough to hold, but small enough that I can just turn it around all these shapes, and it's pretty easy. So if it breaks, if yours break, don't worry, you can still use them a lot of ways. If they get too small, then it's hard to use. So, I mean, if you ever wanting to break one on purpose, try to just break it maybe in half or thirds, but probably not too much smaller than that, because that would be a little bit harder to work with if it was too small. Get some blue on there. So I wanted the color light green for the background, but when I went back, when I needed some other colors to fill it in, I wanted to use different colors, still want it to look green, so I chose yellow and blue. Light yellow and light blue. So hopefully as I go over it and blend it in, it will still look like green all together. But yeah, rubbing it like this is one way, or you can do cross hatching where you do like lines one way and lines back the other way. And you can play around with different techniques for oil pastels. Now, if you're working and your hand or your arm gets tired, or you just feel like you need a focus break, then just remember you can turn off the video or pause it, either way, and then you can come back to your drawing when you're ready later. So it doesn't have to be done in one straight sitting. You can do 10 minutes and then take a break, or 15 minutes, take a break. And that can help you do quality work. If you're starting to feel like you're getting a little burned out of coloring it, then instead of hurrying and finishing, you can take a break, and that will help you get your energy back and your focus back. Okay, let's get a little more. I like this color in the background. It's kind of fun to make your own color by mixing other colors, and that's one thing that oil pastels are really good for, because they can mix pretty well. Sometimes easier than crayon or other things, because these just kind of have that quality of being a little more sticky, so they kind of stick on to each other, colors, and make new colors. Okay. Now I just have a few shapes left to decide what colors I want. So I wanted to play around with the light and dark, and I've mostly used light values for this. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a much darker one for my shape here, so that I can get that contrast. Kind of like I was saying about the dark and the light, or looking in a window. I want to see if I can get that a little bit more here. That feeling. Hopefully this was a good review for your math shapes and names. If I got anything wrong that you know, then that's a good chance for you to check me and see, make sure I'm doing it right. It's fun to put all these shapes together and see what's similar and what's different about them. Usually I try to color going the same direction whenever I fill in a shape. The reason I'm not doing that with this time is because the oil pastel is just so thick that it almost just has a quality where it still looks nice even if you alternate the direction that it's going. The point of not switching is to make it look like smooth and nice so that your eye doesn't accidentally look at something it's not supposed to, like, oh, look at those lines, they're all crisscrossed. You don't want things like that to distract from your picture. But because of this is such a thick medium and it's so bold and dark, it actually goes on pretty evenly, I think, throughout the area. So I'm still not going every which way, but I'm kind of turning my direction as I go just so that it fits the shape I'm coloring, and I think it works. Doing that still gets pretty blended in. I think that works okay. So that's much darker. We've got a lot better contrast there. I think I might go back and darken my blue here too. I just want to get that contrast throughout a little bit more. So we have some bigger lights and darks. I might even do the same thing around the edges of some of these shapes just to bring that contrast up. And color here. Let's do yellow. So high contrast, high value and low value next to each other. Okay, I like this green, but I think I would like to put a little more contrast back in now that I see it finished. So maybe I'll start with some blue and just darken that up a little bit. Might even go darker, we'll see. I might do some parts darker and some parts lighter as well. See how you can just add another color on top and it doesn't really, can't really see where it starts and ends. It just blends in so nicely. The quality of these, you know, that's just how these work. It's so cool. It's interesting to see how it looks too when you're doing layers, when you have that light color coming up from behind, like I do now with this light green coming behind this darker blue. It just kind of makes it look like it's glowing from behind. Okay, like we're almost there. Now just a little more depth to the background. I just peel off like the top sometimes. I just want part of it to be used for the side. And now it's getting really thick on my paper. It's really built up. I'm definitely getting more contrast now. Which is important if you're thinking about light and dark. If you wanted that to be kind of the theme of your picture, you have to have both. Showing through there. Okay, that's working. Had to play around with that a little bit to see what I wanted it to be, and I'm glad I did it. It helped. I think it was good to try a couple things and see what I liked the best. Okay. Thank you for drawing with me today. It was so fun to do these shapes. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.